The divorce papers arrived at my office on a Thursday afternoon, not Monday morning like you'd expect for something so life-altering. Not Friday when I could process it over the weekend. Thursday at 2:47, right in the middle of my quarterly presentation to the board. My assistant knocked twice and entered without waiting for permission. That should have been my first clue something was wrong. Bethany never interrupted board meetings. She crossed the conference room in quick steps, her heels clicking against the marble floor, and handed me the manila envelope. "These just came by courier," she whispered. "The man said it was urgent." 20 sets of eyes watched me open it. The Harrison Industries board members, all waiting for my revenue projections, instead witnessed the exact moment my life imploded. My hands didn't shake. That's what I remember most clearly. They should have shaken, but they stayed perfectly steady as I read the first page. But I felt the blood drain from my face, a cold rush that started at my scalp and ended in my feet. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Garrett Nathaniel Reeves versus Sloane Michelle Reeves. "I need 5 minutes," I heard myself say. My voice sounded normal, professional, like I'd just received an urgent email instead of the end of my marriage. I walked to my corner office overlooking downtown Boise, closed the door, and finally looked at what else was in the envelope. That's when I saw it. A flash drive taped to a single sheet of paper with 4 words written in Garrett's careful handwriting. "I know about everything." The flash drive felt heavier than it should have, like it already knew what it was about to ruin. I plugged it into my laptop and waited for it to load. One folder appeared on my screen labeled Evidence. Inside were subfolders with dates going back 8 months. 8 months. He'd known for 8 months. I clicked on the oldest folder first. Screenshots of text messages between me and Dominic filled my screen. Messages I thought I'd deleted. Messages that showed everything from our first flirtations to our most intimate conversations. How had Garrett gotten these? I'd been so careful with my phone, always deleting our conversations, always turning off notifications. The next folder contained photographs. Me entering the Riverside Hotel at 2 in the afternoon on a Wednesday I'd claimed to be at a client lunch. Me and Dominic at a restaurant in Meridian, far enough from Boise that I thought we were safe. His hand on mine across the table. The timestamp showed it was during a weekend I'd told Garrett I was at a leadership conference in Sun Valley. But it was the audio files that made my stomach drop. Recordings of phone calls, my voice crystal clear, telling Dominic things I'd never said to my husband, laughing at inside jokes, making plans. I even heard myself mocking Garrett for a new shirt he was proud of. "He has no style," I'd laughed to Dominic, making promises I had no right to make. The last folder was labeled Financial. Bank statements showing cash withdrawals, credit card charges to hotels, Uber receipts to addresses that weren't client offices, a spreadsheet documenting every lie, every deception, with the kind of detailed attention Garrett brought to his engineering projects. He'd approached my infidelity like a problem to be solved, gathering data points, building his case. I closed the laptop and walked to the window. 20 stories below, Boise stretched out in the afternoon sun. The foothills rose in the distance, golden in the October light. Garrett and I had moved here 12 years ago, fresh out of college, full of plans. He'd gotten a job at Micron. I'd started as a junior analyst at an investment firm. We'd bought our first house in the North End, a tiny bungalow we'd spent weekends renovating. When had it started going wrong? Not 8 months ago with Dominic. That was just when I'd acted on feelings that had been building for years. The real beginning was harder to pinpoint. Maybe it was when I got my 3rd promotion in 5 years while Garrett stayed in the same position. Maybe it was when we stopped talking about anything beyond schedules and house repairs. Maybe it was when I started seeing his contentment as complacency, his stability as boring. My phone buzzed. A text from Garrett. "Your things will be packed and in the garage. You can pick them up this weekend. Please don't contact me except through lawyers." 12 years of marriage reduced to boxes in a garage. I tried calling him but went straight to voicemail. His voice on the recording sounded exactly the same as always, calm, measured. "You've reached Garrett Reeves. Please leave a message." "Garrett, we need to talk about this. You can't just—" I stopped. What was I going to say? That he couldn't just divorce me for cheating? That he should have confronted me instead of gathering evidence in secret? That he owed me a chance to explain? I hung up without finishing the message. The board was still waiting when I returned to the conference room. I delivered my presentation on autopilot, watching my mouth form words about market penetration and growth strategies, while my mind replayed every moment of the last 8 months. Every time Garrett had kissed me goodbye in the morning. Every dinner we'd shared. Every time he'd asked about my day and I'd lied. He'd known. The whole time, he'd known. "Excellent projections, Sloan," Board Chairman Williams said when I finished. "Though you seem a bit distracted today." "Everything all right?" "Just a family matter," I said. "Nothing that will affect my work." But that was another lie, wasn't it? Everything would affect my work now. The divorce would be public. People would talk. Dominic worked for one of our client companies. When that came out, and it would come out, Garrett had made sure of that with his meticulous documentation, my professional reputation would take a hit. I stayed late at the office, not wanting to go home to an empty house. My house, our house, Garrett's house now probably. Idaho was a community property state, but infidelity could impact settlement negotiations. With the evidence he'd compiled, his lawyer would have plenty to work with. Dominic called around 7. "Hey, beautiful, still coming over tonight?" "I can't." I stared at the divorce papers spread across my desk. "Garrett knows." Silence. Then, "What do you mean he knows?" "I mean he knows everything. He's been documenting it for months. He filed for divorce today." "Oh." Another pause. "That's... How did he find out?" "I don't know. Does it matter?" "I guess not. So what happens now?" What happened now? I'd been asking myself that for hours. "I suppose we don't have to sneak around anymore." "Right?" His voice sounded different, distant. "Look, Sloan, maybe we should take some time to figure things out. This is a lot to process." Time to figure things out? I laughed, but it came out bitter. "You said you loved me. You said you wanted to be with me." "I do." I did. But I wasn't thinking about... divorce is serious. And if he has evidence, that could affect my career too. My company does a lot of business with yours. You get that, right? I have to look out for myself. The line went dead. He hung up. I called back, but he didn't answer. I finally drove home around 10. The house was dark except for the porch light. Garrett's car wasn't in the driveway. Inside, evidence of his methodical nature was everywhere. The photos were gone from the walls, leaving clean rectangles on the paint. His office was empty. The bedroom closet held only my clothes. On the kitchen counter was another envelope. Inside, a single sheet listing what he'd taken, only his personal belongings, and what he'd left, everything else. At the bottom, in that same careful handwriting, "The locksmith will come Friday to change the locks. Your new keys will be on the counter." Even in leaving me, he was considerate, organized, fair. I poured wine and sat on the couch we'd bought together at a furniture store in Eagle. We'd argued about the color for an hour before compromising on gray. Safe, neutral gray, like our marriage had become. My phone rang. "Mom." "Sloan, honey, Garrett just called me. He wanted me to hear it from him before you told me your version. Is it true?" "Is what true?" "Don't play games with me." "Did you cheat on that man?" "Mom, it's complicated." "It's not complicated. It's a yes or no question. Did you betray your husband?" I took another sip of wine. "Yes." "Oh, Sloan." The disappointment in her voice was worse than anger would have been. "That sweet man. How could you? You don't understand what it was like. Garrett and we were just roommates. There was no passion, no excitement. Passion fades, baby. What lasts is partnership, commitment, trust. You had a good man who loved you and you threw it away for what? Some excitement? I have to go, Mom. Your father and I are here if you need us. But Sloan, you need to take responsibility for this. No excuses, no blame shifting. You did this. She was right. I had done this, but knowing that didn't make it easier to accept. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Let the board think what they wanted about my family matter. I spent the day going through Garrett's documentation again, trying to understand how he'd gotten it all. The text messages made sense once I thought about it. We were on a family phone plan. He had administrative access. The photos must have been from a private investigator. The credit card statements were from our joint accounts. The audio... I found my answer in the metadata of one of the files. The recordings were from my car. Garrett had bought me a new BMW for my birthday 6 months ago. Top of the line, with all the safety features including an interior recording system in case of accidents. He'd set it up for me, synced it to his phone so he could help if I ever broke down. I'd thought it was sweet. He'd been planning this for at least 6 months. Before I'd even met Dominic. Which meant he'd suspected something was going on even before there was something going on. Or maybe he'd just known me well enough to see where I was headed before I did. The weekend came too fast. I'd arranged to pick up my things Saturday morning, hoping to avoid him. But when I pulled up to the house, Garrett was in the driveway, washing his car. He looked the same. Jeans and a Micron t-shirt. Baseball cap pulled low. He glanced up when I parked, but didn't stop what he was doing. "The boxes are labeled," he said without looking at me. "Your lawyer can contact mine about the rest." "Garrett, can we please talk?" "No." He kept scrubbing the hubcap. "There's nothing to talk about." 12 years. Don't I deserve... You deserved a lot of things. He finally looked up. His eyes were calm, empty. I deserved things too, like honesty, respect, a wife who didn't make me feel like a fool for trusting her. I never meant... I don't care what you meant. I care what you did. He went back to washing. "Take your things and go, Sloan." I loaded the boxes while he finished his car. 20 boxes to show for 12 years. When I was done, I stood by my car, keys in hand, trying to find words that might matter. "For what it's worth," I said, "I'm sorry." He straightened up, tossed the sponge in the bucket. "You're sorry you got caught?" "No, I'm sorry I hurt you." "Are you?" "Because you seemed pretty happy hurting me for the last 8 months, laughing with him about our sex life, making fun of my hobbies, planning your future together." His voice never rose, which somehow made it worse. "I heard it all, Sloan. I heard you laugh about my new shirt. I heard every cruel word, every lie. So forgive me if I don't believe you're actually sorry." I drove away with his words echoing in my head. He'd heard it all. Every conversation I'd had with Dominic in my car, every casual cruelty I'd shared, thinking I was safe in my privacy. The times I'd called Garrett boring, predictable. The times I'd laughed at his excitement over a new circuit board design or his weekend woodworking projects. Dominic had texted a few times, but I hadn't responded. What was the point? He'd shown his true colors the moment things got complicated. The passion I'd thrown my marriage away for had evaporated at the first sign of consequences. Monday brought new challenges. Word had gotten around the office. Conversations stopped when I walked by. My assistant barely made eye contact. By lunch, HR had called me in for a meeting. "We've received some concerning information about a potential relationship with a client company employee," Director Phillips said. "While personal relationships aren't strictly prohibited, the nature of this situation could expose the company to liability." They'd already known. Of course they had. Garrett's documentation had probably included enough to destroy my career along with my marriage. "I understand," I said. "What do you need from me?" We're placing you on administrative leave while we investigate. It's paid leave for now, but I'd encourage you to consider your options. A voluntary resignation might be better for everyone involved. 2 weeks later, I submitted my resignation. The divorce was moving forward quickly thanks to Garrett's preparation and my inability to contest the evidence. Idaho's community property laws meant a 50-50 split of assets, but Garrett's lawyer argued successfully that my infidelity had caused significant emotional distress. The settlement negotiations tilted in his favor. I moved to a one-bedroom apartment in Meridian, close enough to Boise for job hunting, but far enough that I wouldn't run into Garrett or our mutual friends. Not that many of them were speaking to me anyway. It's amazing how fast 12 years of shared friendships can evaporate. They chose him, the steady, reliable guy who'd been wronged, not the cheater who'd thrown it all away. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia who specialized in difficult divorces, was blunt in her assessment. He played this perfectly. The evidence is overwhelming and organized. You have no grounds to contest. Take the offer and move on. The offer was fair, considering. The house would be sold, profits split, our retirement accounts divided, no alimony for either party. Clean break. Garrett wanted nothing from me except my absence from his life. 3 months after that Thursday afternoon, I ran into his sister at Whole Foods. Jessie had always been protective of her brother, and I expected anger or a confrontation. Instead, she looked at me with something worse: pity. "He's doing well," she said without my asking. "Threw himself into work, got promoted. He's even dating someone." "Already?" The word came out before I could stop it. "It's been months, Sloan. Months where he knew his marriage was over. He processed the grief while you were still lying to him. By the time he filed, he was ready to move on." She was right. While I'd been sneaking around, feeling clever and alive, Garrett had been mourning our marriage, planning his exit, building his case. He'd had 8 months to accept what I was only beginning to understand. "Is he happy?" I asked. Jessie considered the question. "He's getting there. Sarah is good for him. She's an engineer, too. They actually talk to each other. The implied criticism hung between us. Take care, Sloan." I abandoned my groceries and sat in my car in the parking lot, processing this information. Sarah. He was dating someone named Sarah, an engineer who could probably appreciate his circuit board excitement and weekend projects. Someone who wouldn't find him boring or predictable, someone who would see his stability as strength, not stagnation. Dominic had moved on too. LinkedIn showed he'd taken a job in Austin. No goodbye, no explanation. Just gone, like our relationship had been nothing but a dangerous distraction from our real lives. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was still in Meridian, still in my one-bedroom apartment. I'd found another job, a step down from my previous position, but respectable enough. The scandal had followed me but was fading. People forget. New dramas replace old ones, but I didn't forget. Couldn't forget. The methodical way Garrett had documented my betrayal. The calm patience he'd shown while gathering evidence. The organized precision of my removal from his life. He'd treated my infidelity like an engineering problem, breaking it down into components, analyzing the data, implementing a solution. I learned from mutual friends that he'd married Sarah a year later, a small ceremony in McCall by the lake. The photos on social media showed him smiling in a way I hadn't seen in years. Genuine, unguarded, happy. I wasn't invited, of course. Wouldn't have gone if I had been. But I studied those photos like the evidence files he'd compiled against me, looking for signs of the man I'd thrown away. He looked younger somehow, lighter, like the weight of our failing marriage had aged him in ways I hadn't noticed. Sarah was pretty in an understated way, brown hair pulled back in a simple style, minimal makeup. Her wedding dress was elegant but practical. She looked at Garrett like he was everything, the way I used to, before I convinced myself that steady love wasn't enough. They bought a house in Eagle, had a baby within 2 years, a boy they named after Garrett's father. The kind of traditional life I'd thought I was too sophisticated to want, too ambitious to settle for. But settling isn't the right word, is it? Garrett hadn't settled with me. He'd chosen me, loved me, built a life with me. I was the one who'd decided it wasn't enough, who'd needed excitement and passion and secrets, who'd mistaken drama for depth, infidelity for independence. Now, 3 years after that Thursday afternoon, I still live alone. I date occasionally, but nothing sticks. The men I meet fall into 2 categories: those who Google me and find out about the divorce, or those who don't, and eventually leave when they realize I'm incapable of the kind of trust real relationships require. Once you've betrayed someone that completely, it breaks something inside you. Or maybe it reveals what was already broken. I drive past our old house sometimes. Another couple lives there now. They've painted it yellow, added a swing set in the backyard. The life we could have had if I'd been a different person. If I'd valued what I had instead of chasing what I thought I wanted. Garrett's documentation of my betrayal sits in a storage unit across town. I couldn't throw it away. It feels important to keep it, this evidence of who I was, who I am. A reminder of the precise moment I destroyed the best thing in my life, captured in screenshots and spreadsheets and audio files. He'd known for 8 months, watched me lie for 8 months, kissed me goodbye each morning and came home to me each night, all while building his case. The patience that must have taken, the strength, the absolute certainty that leaving was the right choice. I wonder sometimes what would have happened if he'd confronted me when he first suspected, if he'd fought for us instead of documenting our demise. But that's just another way of avoiding responsibility, isn't it? Garrett didn't owe me a chance to save our marriage. I'd had 12 years of chances and thrown them all away. The evidence never lies. That's what Garrett used to say about his engineering work. Data doesn't have feelings or motivations, it just is. And the data of our marriage told a clear story. A man who loved his wife, and a woman who decided that wasn't enough. My phone buzzes with a text from my mother. Sunday dinner invitation. She's never given up on me, even when I gave her every reason to. I text back that I'll be there. It's something. A small piece of family in a life I've stripped of meaningful connections. As I drive through Boise toward my childhood home, I pass the exit for Garrett's old office. He works remotely now, someone told me. Sarah wanted to be closer to her family in Coeur d'Alene. So they moved. Built a custom house with a workshop where Garrett can pursue his woodworking. The kind of life I'd mocked as provincial. The kind of life that looks like happiness in every photo I've seen. The evidence he compiled isn't just stored in that unit. It lives in my head, a permanent file I can't delete. Every lie cataloged, every deception documented, every moment of betrayal preserved in digital amber. Garrett gave me exactly what I deserved, the truth about who I'd become, organized and undeniable. I pull into my parents' driveway as the sun sets behind the foothills. Another Sunday dinner where they'll ask if I'm seeing anyone, where Mom will get that worried look when I say no, where Dad will change the subject to safer ground, where I'll pretend I'm building a new life instead of living in the ruins of the old one. But pretending is what I do best, isn't it? I pretended to be a faithful wife, pretended my marriage was the problem, pretended excitement was worth more than stability. The only person I couldn't pretend with was Garrett, because he'd seen through it all. Gathered the evidence, filed it away, and then set himself free with the kind of methodical grace I'd mistaken for boring predictability. The porch light is on. Mom waves from the window. I grab the wine I brought and head inside, carrying the weight of my choices like evidence I can never destroy. 3 years later, and I'm still guilty. The only difference is now everyone knows it, starting with me.